she's probably saying like,
Hi,
"Oh,
everybody.
Sean, you got on
It's
TV."
Tina with Tiffany and Sean and Lucy, Seller Mom. And today we're going to be talking about alternatives to your bookkeeping if you had been using GoDaddy with the Grafmans, Tiffany and Sean. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning.
So, Tiffany and Sean, can you tell the community a little bit about your backstory with bookkeeping and why you're doing Amazon, and just tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure thing. So originally what got us started in Amazon was Sean and his mom used to sell used books and DVDs. And they did that for a number of years. And whenever he was in college, and that's where we initially met, we started doing it as a hobby together. And then we branched off and started our own thing. And then we happened to, whenever we were visiting my family the one time, we just hit this enormous clearance section of toys and we were just astounded. And Sean's like, why don't we try this for a while? And then after that, we did it for a hobby for many years. And what ended up happening was I used to work as an accountant for the government, and I ended up getting really sick. I started losing my vision and going blind. And Sean and I are talking to each other saying, well, what do we do? And I'm like, I can't live like this. I gotta quit and try something different. And initially we were like going back and forth saying, well, what about Amazon? And we're like, sure, let's try this. And so I ended up quitting my job. And then shortly after that, I got diagnosed with lupus and realized I couldn't go back to a traditional way of working. If I did, I don't know where I would be health wise. But we did that and I started doing this full time. Sean still works for the government and does some accounting for them. And I've been enjoying it. And this has been some of the best health I've been in years. And it also balanced out too with having a little one at home. I can be there for my little one and still be able to meet all the doctor's appointments and stuff and keep track of my health.
And you have a little one that also has some special needs. So I know that on top of already being busy enough with a little one at home and working from home, he's also special needs, so it takes a little extra attention.
Yes, exactly. And it fit in perfectly because he's autistic. And so it was great being able to have that flexible schedule to get him the help he needs. And he's actually been doing amazing. And so we're very proud of him.
Yeah, it's a real blessing that you were able to replace your income and get to stay at home and do this. And now, have you surpassed the income you used to make in the workforce?
Actually, not yet, because I was pretty high up there.
Yeah.
But, knowing the growth potential is always what keeps us going, because this is not a short-term thing. And we see the long-term goals of, eventually we can get him off, doing this as well. And eventually, hopefully make it as a passive income with our own warehouse and such. So.
And I love your guys' really cool Star Wars Ramen Head Bowl shirts.
Thank you. So that's our couple thing. We like matching.
So I know that Tiffany made slides for us this morning, and as she was showing them to me, poor thing, she actually accidentally deleted all of her slides. She forgot to put them in save.
Yeah, so it's okay. So later on, we'll have them saved somewhere where Tina will save them somewhere, but I'll send them later.
She's going to give them to us so we can put them in the Facebook group in the files area for everyone to use. You know how that feels, huh, Luce, when you do all this work and then you forget to hit save. Oh, you're still feeling sick this morning?
Yeah, I'm still a bit under the weather, but it's all right. I took a shot of Dayquil before coming in here.
I'm so sorry.
Letting it kick in.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and did you want me to share your screen now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, perfect.
All right. So Tina was letting us know that GoDaddy is going away for their accounting software. And so we were talking to her about how we use our inventory lab for our accounting. And the reason why you can do this is this section right here that says accounting actually helps to add stuff to your profit and loss statement. So this section here, the other income section, this is where you can add in any additional sales you get, whether that is through places like Poshmark, Mercari, eBay. Sean was mentioning earlier, like cash sales. You can enter all that information into that section. And also down here is other expenses where you can add information such as what's your monthly expenses that you get, whether that's like an internet bill or if you use a repricer like Be Cool, you can have all that information automatically each month add to that other expenses section. And then also, whenever you're recording those sales from like Poshmark, eBay, Mercari, etc., you can also put in what was your cost of goods that you sold, what are your fees, and that's some other things that you can add to that other expense section.
Now, I have
And
a question
yep,
with that, with when you're adding, because I actually have looked in this area before, and I know it's like using a checkbook ledger. You can just manually enter in these things, or like you said, you can set it like, especially if your Be Cool is always the same every month, you can set it to just auto populate it for you. But what I am curious about, and I don't know this, I know that eBay, for instance, has their monthly reports that you can download.
mhm.
This allow you to upload some sort of file to automatically put all that information in there, or do you have to manually type it in?
So I've always manually typed it in. Let me click into this because this is one. So you'll see some of my Poshmark sales. It looks like there is an import button. I'm not sure exactly what all files you can do because I've always just done my Poshmark
Okay.
on this because that's where my secondary platform is mostly is Poshmark. And so, which I can show an example now of how you would add an income like that.
Okay.
So up here you have your add button. So whenever you click that, you have these sections here. So category, what this is, and we already have some pre-done. But this category section where this is going to translate on your profit and loss report this is the category that's going to show up on there. So this transaction I'm going to record for this example for Poshmark, whenever you go to your profit and loss, all of these transactions for a certain amount of time will show up underneath that category.
Okay.
So I'd go down and push Poshmark. And then the name and description sections on here, really you can do what you want with them. What we've chose to do is for the name, because this is not going to show up on the report. This is more for you to be able to track what you've entered in. So I'll do the order ID. And then we'll just call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so normally I'm pulling all this information off of the email that I receive from Poshmark whenever I'm printing off my shipping label. And then you would do your date, which we'll do today's date because then you'll be able to see it. Amount. So the amount, there's different ways to record it, and it depends how you're going to do your expenses later. Something that is coming up in the pipeline, and this is a big conversation out there right now, is the different platforms having to report 1099s for, is it $600?
And the IRS rules something like over $600 of any other income that you receive on any single platform. PayPal made the biggest waves with it of if you get money via PayPal, you got to get they're going to have to send you a 1099 if it's over 600. And I remember there was a lot of like, oh, so that you don't get taxed on money, make sure that you put in your description notes reimbursement for, and, payback from so on and so forth, to signify that that's not income per se. But going back to what you were saying, is you can either choose to, put your total sale price for Poshmark, so that you can reconcile with that 1099 directly, or you can do what we do, which is we just do whatever cash Poshmark is going to release to us, which is price minus the Poshmark fee, and sales tax is already taken out, and so we don't worry about either of those metrics on the Poshmark platform. We just worry about what cash came to us,
what actual income you're getting.
Yeah,
correct.
Which at this point, I will put in a disclaimer. No, we are not tax professionals or CPAs, so always consult with your CPA or your tax professional that works with you to know how they would like for you to see this done, because essentially you're trying to make it easy for them to do your taxes later on whenever it's tax season, and for you to know what your business is doing, and so you want those two parties to be happy. So just caveat that in, because honestly, he does our taxes, so I always check with him. Do you like the way I'm doing our bookkeeping? So
I think you're exactly right on that, because my CPA, she pulls certain numbers from Inventory Lab, but then there's other numbers she doesn't pull. So it makes no sense for me to enter them into Inventory Lab if it's getting pulled in a different manner. But at the end of the day, all of those numbers come into play. And so you have to be able to get them in some way or form. And there's several different ways you can do that. And
I think, and exactly what you said, the key, said a different way, is the key with helping your tax, the bill to get your taxes done as low as possible, is to coordinate and get them as organized beforehand as possible. Especially if you're paying somebody by the hour, that's if they're taking an hour of their time to get the stuff that you send them organized, that's an extra bill that you're having to pay. But if you do it yourself and you automate it in your process already, you're saving yourself money without even thinking about it.
Very good.
Right. And I'll add one more thing. Just knowing where everything is recorded and being consistent with that through the year is going to save you a headache in the end. For instance, when I'm doing my cost of goods for my Amazon items, if I have poly bags or bubble wrap or boxes that are used, that gets recorded on a different line. So I do not record that in my cost of goods on the Inventory Lab when I input it in, because it's recorded somewhere else. So you don't want to record it double.
Exactly. The worst thing that you can do is be double counting expenses, and especially in the IRS's eyes, falsifying or inflating your expenses. That's a big no-no. It will get caught at some point. And for us, we do whatever the sale price is by and large. And if we incur sales tax, that's included, because Inventory Lab factors that sales tax in as a normal calculation. And then we do, because it's so small, is we just, whenever we purchase supplies, we do that as another expense line whenever we make that purchase.
Yeah. And so we say all this to say, like, in this amount part, talk with your CPA on which way they would prefer it. Like Sean was saying, the way that we do it is whatever the amount that we're getting paid. So let's say for this sale, we got, $12 from Poshmark. And then in our description, I typically, as you can see on the side, I'll put actually what we sold, And so in this case, we'll just put that was a bra. because Poshmark is really good for selling clothing. And we've seen a lot of success in selling clothing on there. So, and then whenever you save it, you'll see it gets added to this top row. And then for what happens on the back end, so if we go to our profit and loss statement here under reports, you will see that it's actually added right here.
Oh, very cool.
And so this is why you can do this as an accounting, you know, and that's what's really cool about it too. Which, because Sean and I talked about before, and like talking down here, you'll see like some of our automatic stuff's already coming out. So like our office expense, for example, we have that $82.99. That's for our internet bill because we cannot do this business without internet. And so we have it set that monthly this will come out. And then also too, I had to buy boxes. So a big shipping supplies came out, you know, there too at the beginning of the month. And that was all because we've added it in later on through the other expenses.
And so for a full month, you'll see your Poshmark, your eBay, and your Amazon there. But for today, since we only entered in Poshmark, that's why only it populates right now.
Yeah, and I was going to do an example of a Poshmark expense, and then we'll come back and we'll actually see how that pops up in there too.
Okay.
Under expenses. Yeah,
So
under other expenses.
full.
Let's see. So I'm going to jump over here to other expenses because right now you can see this is how we do our other expenses for Poshmark. And so whenever you go up here to add, what is awesome about the category section is if you don't have a category that you want to use, you can make up your own. And in the case of Poshmark, for example, Inventory Lab didn't have these ones called like Poshmark. For us, Poshmark cost of goods sold, anything like that. And we were able to add that in. And so once again, going back to talk to your accountant or your bookkeeper or your CPA, whoever you're using to see what they like. In the accounting world, we call these ledger of accounts.
Or chart of accounts.
Chart of accounts.
And I imagine I haven't worked in GoDaddy accounting, but for QuickBooks and for Xero and other accounting softwares, they'll refer to that is, okay, what are all of your categories or chart of accounts for your for income? What are your chart of accounts for your liabilities or your debts or expenses? And then they'll even have, okay, what is your equity account that, is, maybe that signifies your net profit, or maybe that signifies your the paycheck that you pay yourself. And it really is all on how it buckets it. And for the profit and loss, we make sure that we have both that other income category for a Poshmark sale so that we know that we're tracking it right. But for every Poshmark sale, unless it's an item that was free to us, we also have a Poshmark cost of goods sold, because we know that by and large, most of the things that we have, we incurred a cost on to get. And because of how we have Inventory Lab set up, we have to account for the cost again, even if it was on a different platform.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to what Lucy said before, consistency. So you don't want to have like 3 different categories that you put your cost of goods sold in, or, later on, whenever we're talking about the shipping supplies and stuff like that, you want to always be consistent of what bucket are you putting your expenses in. And it'll be your CPA or accountant will be thanking you later for being consistent in that. So here we go. We got our Poshmark cost of goods sold. The date, you want them to correlate. So you want them to be the same date. And then let's just say this was $5.89 for this bra. And so the way that I've personally done our bookkeeping is I like being able to map things back so that if I ever have to export this because there's a question on a sale we did or something, I want to be able to just go control find, put in the order number, order ID, whatever you want to call it, and find it. So I always keep it consistent. So like in this way, on the prior one, we put that was a bra, and then it was order ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so whenever we push create, it will add that up here. And we now see that here in our expenses.
Mhm.
And then if we go over to our profit and loss, I'm going to refresh it. So that now, see, we have that Poshmark cost of goods sold pop up. And then now here is our cost of good. And it's calculated in there to tell us what's going on.
Very nice. Now,
Yeah.
how do you keep track of what you're spending for an item? Like for Amazon, when we're using Inventory Lab and creating our shipment, we are inputting the cost of good at the time of the shipment creation. Where in this Poshmark sale, as your example, or be it eBay, whatever platform one is wanting to track their expenses here in Inventory Lab, you're not putting it in at the time of listing the item on Poshmark. So are you manually writing it down in a notebook, or are you coding it somehow in your Poshmark listing?
So that's a great question. And yes, I am coding it in some way. With Poshmark, specifically, I'll go to that one, is some of these platforms have great reports that they're already pulling. And so with Poshmark, as you're making the listing down at the bottom, they have information that only the seller can see. And so you can make yourself a SKU. There's actually a section that's called cost there. I will settle my qualms here about that right now. And I've actually messaged Poshmark about it because it irks me as the accountant inside of me because they will not let you do change. Like they'll let you do $5, but you can't do $5.50. And rounding up or down every time is going to really throw off your numbers. So there's also this other section down at the bottom that I actually put the exact cost that I paid for it in there. So whenever I run, there's an inventory report in Poshmark. Whenever I run it, I can look and see in that other section what price did I pay for it. And so it all depends on what platform you're using. I have heard of other people like with Facebook Marketplace and stuff, like just coding in their code somehow, like the last 3-4 digits of their SKUs going to be their price, and so there's many different ways to do it. It's what is most convenient for you and what is easy for you to understand. Because at the end of the day, you don't want this to be a headache on you too, in figuring out. So
doing your books like this for those that don't want to pay a bookkeeper or use the expensive QuickBooks and Xero and things of that nature, then this saves money, but it is a little bit more time requirement because you have to be very diligent and disciplined to either daily with your sales or platforms outside of Amazon to be diligent to input your stuff daily, or like me, I do paperwork once a week. So once a week is when I sit down at the table and do my stuff. But this is a great alternative.
Oh yeah. Well, and as far as for the sale of an item on another platform, I do it while I ship it out. If you just make it part of the routine, or train, if you have an employee, train your employee on how to do it.
Yeah.
I've been talking to our employee, and if they want extra hours, I'm going to let them package up other platforms whenever we're shipping those out instead of just prepping our stuff for Amazon to go into the warehouse, and teach them how to do this, but that's always another option too.
So then, this is very simple to input your cost of goods, what the item sold. You can allocate it the bucket, of what platform it's on and where it belongs. Now, what about like those end of year reports for all of the fees that you paid? I'm not even sure if Inventory Labs pulls all those fees or not, but I know Amazon gives you their end of year report. eBay, you have your monthly and year end report. All the platforms give you the end year report. Do you plug those also into Inventory Lab monthly yearly, or is that a separate paperwork you use at the end of the year when you're doing taxes?
So first, I'll answer the Amazon question with yes, Inventory Lab records all those fees in your profit and loss. It will do your refunds, all that. It has all that incorporated. So usually, if it has to deal with Amazon, you're hands off. That profit and loss really does a good job recording all that. For the other platforms, like Sean was saying earlier, going back to that, it depends how you want to put those fees in. With Poshmark, in this example, we did it where their fees were already taken out. If you were going to do the same example, but with the fees, let's say that $12 that we received, your sale was actually 20. So you would enter in your other income as 20, do the step like we just did with the cost of goods sold and other expenses. You would do that one as a separate line item. And I'll plug in for maybe a future video of why we do it this way.
Yeah.
With the other cost of goods sold is so that we know how much money we can put back into the business and how much we are budgeting to like that pay period time frame to know what are we spending on inventory so that we're either maintaining our Amazon and other platform machines or are we growing it. So that's why we specifically earmark that out. But with your fees, if you are going to record those, you would add a second transaction that would say like Poshmark fee, and you would add that in there so that it will deduct that from your other expenses.
And that just seems like a lot more paperwork, but I just, because I don't understand taxes or accounting, that's why I have a bookkeeper that does all this for me. I didn't know if those numbers, all those fees, the part that you're leaving out of the bookkeeping is important for getting your taxes done or not. That, I really don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, and Amazon does it, and I think now that we have a significant amount of Poshmark sales, plus with the additional enforcement, we may get what's most people may already know this, a 1099K, which is basically, that's not actually a income. That's not like a 1099 miscellaneous, like you're an independent contractor and you are responsible for paying the taxes on that dollar. The 1099K is just a informational statement saying Amazon paid or recognized sales for you in this top line amount. And you start what I do for my taxes. Once again, not a tax professional, but I do have a finance degree and finance education. Is I use that 1099K as my top line, as I will I'll use that as my top line. Amazon paid us X dollars, and then I'll use Inventory Lab's expense categories to draw down from that.
So it's a 1099K. That's your net income that Amazon gave you, not
No.
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 Your 1099K is not your net income that Amazon paid you. That is the total sales that Amazon recognized for you, including shipping credits, including gift. If Amazon gift wraps something for you, that is all in that 1099K, recognized as part of the sales.
Okay.
It's a much bigger number than
reality
than what you should be recognizing as net profit. And if your accountant is starting with that as your net profit, I would strongly recommend questioning that to the highest degree, because there's expenses of inventory, there's expenses of Amazon fees, there's so many additional expenses that you take from that top line and you draw down from that. And Inventory Lab is our main source of reconciling of how we draw down from that. Because whenever Inventory Lab imports and talks to the Amazon Web Services, it gives you the FBA fulfillment fees. It gives you the shipping credits that really you never see in your paycheck because you get it does real time, almost near real time refunds, and you all of that those items you can use to draw down from that net profit, which affects your tax bill at the end of the year or quarterly.
And then eBay reports and Poshmark reports also will give you those same numbers. Every platform has the same. It's just that with Inventory Lab, it only talks with Amazon.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that's why whenever we recognize a sale, that we re-record how much that item cost as we recognize the sale. There's other fees that on the 1099K for Poshmark, if we receive one. I don't think we received one last year.
Because they're starting it this year.
But they're starting to do more granular reports this year. What I'll end up doing is I'll probably go into Poshmark's reporting tool. They're actually getting a lot better with showing graphs and historical sales charts that I haven't looked at it recently, but I bet they have how much in fees we've paid Poshmark at this point.
Yes, they do. It's in the sales report. So I usually run that for you.
See, you've checked that. You already know. So that means whenever Poshmark gives you that 1099K of you got this much, when really it's not. It's this much minus Poshmark fees, minus any shipping discounts you gave your customer, or any sales tax that Poshmark had to pay on your behalf. And then that boils down to what cash came into your pocket, and then cash that came into your pocket minus your inventory cost to equal your net profit.
So for people who don't use Inventory Lab yet, like when I first started Amazon, the first, I want to say 4 months, I used to create my shipments within Amazon and print out my stickers on my own. And then I got Inventory Lab. And of course, you never look back. But because I know there are a few sellers that are out there that are newer that don't use Inventory Lab, while I think most people do use it. But if you don't, what a great time now to go ahead and get it. Because what is Inventory Lab a month? Is it $49? I pay for it yearly.
We pay for it yearly as well.
Yeah,
but I think it's like $48 or $50 a month.
And it's like you figure now you can do your bookkeeping with that $50. In addition, now the ease of doing your Amazon shipments. If you don't have Inventory Lab, it will change your life with creating your Amazon shipments.
And you can keep track of your mileage. That's also a good one too, because this is what we use for our mileage as well.
You guys are so good. I use that there's an app on my phone that just tracks my driving, but yeah, I just really need discipline when it comes to the business stuff like this. For my personal budget, I'm good. But for my business stuff, I just rely on the bookkeeper. I'm like, here's everything.
We have 2 questions, one from the audience, and then I have a question. But TJ asks, does the 1099K include taxes from each sale?
It's a great question. I don't have a 1099K in front of me, so I don't recall specifically. My gut instinct is yes, that 1099K is very much a top line number that Amazon records as a sale to you. Once again, double check with your bookkeeper and be sure to do some digging on that. But I utilize that as top line, and I believe in the 1099K, it will itemize some things. Like I know in the, it will mention like gift wrapping or promotional rebates are included in that. I will go, I'll verify that with what we have in Inventory Lab, but that I would go ahead and assume and research to say that yes, it does include taxes.
And you can check and let Tina know after if it's different from that so that we can get you the correct answer.
Certainly.
So Google says sales tax is also included on Form 1099K as part of your gross sales. So keep track of the sales tax collected by your business.
Yes. And that will we'll defer to your accountant for how you want to recognize sales tax for your business. That is something that is very that is addressed very uniquely with each business, depending on how you view nexus laws, so on and so forth.
For Amazon, Inventory Lab does record those. It's like towards the bottom of that profit and loss statement. It's not actually in the expense categories or anything. It's at the bottom, the very bottom.
And then my question is for recording purposes, if you could walk us through maybe, let's say you have a return on one of these items. How do you record it Let's say somebody returns something and then you put it back up for sale. Do you go ahead and delete the previous sale, or do you record it as a separate line?
So for the purpose of Poshmark, I'll plug this in. As long as you document very well if there's a defect with your product, Poshmark will most likely side with the seller, and there's no refunds or returns on Poshmark items. That's one reason why we love Poshmark. But whenever we do have a return, I will go through. There's a way that you can just click on this and you can go under actions and you can push delete, which since this isn't a real sale, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And do you want to delete it permanently? Yes. And then it reverses it back out.
Alternatively, and I'll just recommend this if for additional bookkeeping purposes, you can, if you receive a return on another platform and you wish to keep the original sale there, I would recommend editing the cost of goods sold to 0 at that time and edit in your description returned on X date for additional documentation purposes, because whenever you over document, you still can't lose. It's much better to keep records. And what I would do, same thing with the income side of things. In the other income side is find your corresponding order entry, especially if you track it by order ID like we did. It would just be control find or use your advanced search tool, and you would edit the description, say returned on, and then if it was a partial refund, only reduce your other income by the amount that you had to give up. And then just make sure that goes back to consistency. If it was a full refund, I would recommend zeroing out your cost of goods sold so that you can recognize your inventory again whenever you sell it. However, if you choose to recognize it then, but don't recognize it again, recognize it once, but don't recognize it twice, because that'll inflate your numbers.
And to show you what Sean's talking about, if you click on whichever one you're going to edit and go underneath actions, you can edit. And so you can go through and, change anything you want. So like make this to 0. And then personally, I would leave your order ID number the same so that you can go back on it and just put refund. And then, like he said, put the date of the refund there. And then that will reflect on it. What you will want to do is leave the date the same, because then whenever you go back and you're looking at that month or whatever, it's going to leave that there in that section of your profit and loss. So I'm going to push cancel because I don't want to actually zero that out. So that's how that would be done.
Can you guys share with us what reports you need to pull for those that want to use this monthly or at the end of the year, either?
Yeah, so it's going back to this. We're just going to stick on June, but you can change this to yearly. You can change it to monthly or quarterly, So I will admit, this is like my lifeline. I keep on top of these numbers all the time. But at the end of the year, if you go to yearly and then change it to whatever year you're trying to pull, if you pull this report and push export, this will give you the spreadsheet form of this report that you can give to your CPA or accountant to use all those numbers. for
And
your taxes.
so the only thing so I agree completely with Tiffany on that.
Mhm.
This is the core report that I use at the end of the year. We pull it on, January 1, just to make sure it's exactly right, or maybe January 2nd if we're running late on it. But we pull it for the whole calendar year.
Mhm.
And then the other report that I would use for in correlation with that is your inventory report.
Yes.
If you are if you recognize inventory on your taxes, and you likely should, um, you'll want your inventory report, one, because that shows how much income, or that shows how much cash is held up in your Amazon inventory, but it also shows how much, if you record it properly, how much is sitting either, if you want to document it as unlisted inventory, you can list your other market items in the unlisted inventory section, or you can import other, such as how we do with the Poshmark. We recognize our inventory value based upon our inventory report.
Yeah.
So you're saying that Poshmark offers an inventory valuation type of report that you
Yes.
So they offer a list of, here's all of your active listings, and on the other, we put our cost of goods in the other description, like we said, because the cost column rounds
Mhm.
and doesn't allow you to do decimals. We do the other details, which allows you. That's free text, and then we sum all that up, and that is our inventory valuation for Poshmark. So it'll be total Amazon FBA and merchant, if we have any at the time, on December 31st, plus Poshmark from our inventory report, factoring in our cost of goods sold, our cost of goods on hand, rather, apologies, plus any unlisted inventory that either we haven't listed yet, or have listed on other platforms that aren't cross-listed. That's the important piece. Is you don't want to list if you have cross-listed software such as Vendoo or List Perfectly or some other. If you have inventory listed on multiple places, you want to make sure you account for it just once.
Yes.
So for the unlisted inventory in Inventory Lab, I have found that feature is pretty lacking in terms of it. It just lacks expiration dates. It's hard to keep track. And let's say you're selling a 3-pack of something and you only have 2 and you got to go out and buy the third, it's on your list of to-dos. All of those rando type of items I record on a spreadsheet for my CPA. Is there any way to use Inventory Lab, or is it pretty much just a spreadsheet at this point?
So I will admit I've never used that unlisted section, and I was looking this morning because I have heard of people using it. And with what it looks like, it has to be a listing on Amazon already because it's asking for the ASIN.
Yep.
And I will admit there's times where I'm out and about, and whenever I find a good deal on a piece of clothing that I know sells and there's not a listing on Amazon for it, it goes to Poshmark. And so for those, I know I wouldn't be able to use that feature. And so that's why, like you said, Lucy, at that point, it is using
Just
a spreadsheet. So,
yeah, I find the same with eBay. eBay doesn't have a report that you can pull for value, an inventory valuation, which is ridiculous. eBay should. eBay is so behind the times on just about everything. So, yeah, I have an ongoing spreadsheet for things. Which I didn't learn. Like I use the batches in Inventory Lab heavily. So let's say I'm making an order today from Target. I'll make a new batch, call it Target, and I enter in the ASINs right then. And it's not going to get to me for whatever, 3 days or something. But let's say it's the end of the month. I can then use that batch and see what the valuation is and put that on my monthly inventory valuation that my CPA needs monthly. Because Inventory Lab does not capture inventory valuation until it ships. It has to ship to be counted.
yes.
Which I found that out this year.
That's interesting. It doesn't.
Yeah. No, so it won't count that inbound.
Oh, that's right. It doesn't
Until-
count the inbound.
Yep,
Yes, that's right.
until you close it out.
Right,
Because
that's
once you
why.
close it out with shipping, then it will do it.
Right. We had a separate line item this year for our annual. That's correct, because we had one inbound, and we had to manually input that in. Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Well,
So something else I will show you guys, unless there's any other questions,
but
is
if you have questions, ask.
yeah, feel free to ask, because if we don't know, we will go look it up and let Tina put it in the comments, or we can put into the comments later what that answer is. But going back to other expenses, because we've covered if you have a sale on another platform from beginning to end, what does that look like? So now we'll do with those expenses of like a monthly expense, for example. So we'll push add. And I personally have one called a category called subscription fees. And so I'll click on that, and I will show you down here, there's this section here called repeat, which is wonderful. So like we were talking about earlier, where there's some things that are yearly, you can select if it's yearly and what day in the year you want this expense to repeat itself. And then you can have that it always repeats. You can have it end on a specific day that, let's say you had a contract with some place on renting something or something to that effect, and it's going to end on a specific date. Enter that date there so that this expense will no longer repeat itself anymore after that time, or if there's after a set number of times. For example, we have the business insurance, and we pay on a monthly basis, but at the end of that 1 year, they have the option to increase fees and stuff like that, because essentially you need to re-sign on. And so whenever we do that, I enter in the after a set number of times. So after 11 months after doing that initial one, it will stop, so that I have to enter it in again. And that's a way for me personally to remember, okay, I got to update this number, because if I don't, our books are going to be off. And that's a good time to plug in that also if you're going to do it this way, you need to set aside a day, whether that's once a quarter, once a half a year, once a year, to look back and check to make sure all your automatic expenses are the correct amount. Because sometimes prices of things go up, or fees will change, contracts will change, things of that nature. And you want to make sure you're recording that internet bill properly, or, your repricer, anything that you get pulled out monthly, bi-yearly.
Your business mailbox.
Yes.
Inventory lab. If you pay for it monthly, or
Inventory lab automatically records that. So that's a bad
yes.
example.
That is a bad example.
FYI for everybody.
But they do it. They automate it for you.
Yes. So. Yes. If it has to deal with Inventory Lab or Amazon specifically, they are very good at capturing that for you. And so that's what you do, is you set when you want to repeat, whatever description you want to always repeat itself, you put there, and what amount that you're paying for that subscription fee, you put there as well. So that's for if you have a repeat. If you don't have a repeat, and let's just say you're buying shipping supplies, because once again, talk to your accountant on how they prefer you to do it. But with our shipping supplies, we expense it all at once. And we don't do it like, oh, we used a box for this sale or a box for that sale. We just do it all at one time. And so we have a category called shipping supplies. And so you would go there the day you bought your shipping supplies, the amount that you paid, and then whatever description is going to help you and your accountant to be able to reconcile later what it is. So like for us, for example, we use wherever we bought it from, whether it's the boxery, are we going to Home Depot or Walmart for boxes, wherever you're going, put that there. And then afterwards, I'll put how much of what we bought. Did we buy 250 boxes? Did we buy a 12-pack of tape, so that also for my personal looking back, I can see how often did I have to order this? Do I want to space it out more? And it helps me make better business decisions based off my descriptions of what intervals can I do this in? Or did I buy too much that last time and I need to scale it back? And so that's why my descriptions, I'll tweak it to what information is going to help me to be a better business person too. Okay, and then I'm just going to push cancel on there. And then one other thing that we wanted to mention, because this was something that I learned whenever I was watching like a video conference thing that Inventory Lab was doing. So I'm going to hop over here. There's a section called refunds underneath your accounting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pulled up one just as an example of something that we had returned. And I wanted to show everyone this, where you have Amazon's deposition. Yeah, of what it is, whether it's sellable or unsellable. If it labels it as sellable, it's going to take that cost of goods sold out of that cost of goods section for Amazon, because you got that item back into your inventory and you can sell it again. But if they deem it unsellable, they're going to leave that cost of goods sold in that section of your profit and loss statement. So where I'm talking about is here. If it's unsellable, that means Amazon deems that you cannot sell it anymore. It's essentially busted, or it's not in new condition. So they're going to leave that cost of goods sold in that section. So in the example that I was showing, we only paid like $250 for those pair of pants that got returned. If they were unsellable, that $250 would be staying in that cost of goods sold. And so it's just to help out you and your accountant. And also, whenever you're bringing stuff back, that helps to know, do you have to include that later in a line item called like unsellable inventory to account for that later? If you had to write off something that Amazon deemed sellable, but you pulled it back, what does that look like? And so there's different ways you can go about it, because you can do that. You can like start a separate spreadsheet, which is my preferred way of doing it, and putting in, let's say, if this pants came back and, Amazon said it was sellable, but really they were ripped somewhere, I will go into a separate spreadsheet and add it. And then at the end of the month, I add in a line item under expenses called unsellable inventory.
Just
so
in
that
your own spreadsheet, not in Inventory Lab, right?
So I have a spreadsheet that I keep track of every single item, but I will put the numbers into Inventory Lab to account for them.
Okay.
But another way you can do it too, and this is all up to you, is there's a way to edit this. And whenever you edit the ID, you can make it unsellable, and it will leave it in your cost of goods sold. And
Hold on, say that again.
So if you, let's say this item was unsellable, you cannot sell it, and you had it brought back to you, you can change the Amazon deposition to say unsellable, and it will stay in your cost of goods sold.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a way to change it, and I will include that in the PowerPoint, because I do not see it right offhand, so I might have to play a little bit, but I can include that in the PowerPoint that Tina will be able to put up later, of how you can change it to unsellable, so that you don't have to necessarily keep a separate spreadsheet if you don't want to, for items that come back from Amazon that are no longer sellable.
So I'm just pulling something. This got returned to me yesterday.
Yes.
It's a Bali bra. There we go. And my accountant says that if Amazon damaged it out and they paid me whatever their damage fee are, that I don't need to record it on my spreadsheet for my disposal, my damaged and disposed items. can I go to this page and find that information?
Yes, you can. And what's awesome about it is, especially if you have the return date, right there, you could search by your return date. If you had the order ID, you could search by the order ID and it'll come up. And to make sure that everything's right for your accountant, you just look here and see, is it listed as unsellable? Because if it does, over here where it says cost unit credit, it'll say 0 because it will have expensed it under your cost of goods sold under that profit and loss statement.
Okay, so hold on. I got to share my page really quick because I need help.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I just took a snippet because I don't want to share all the information, but this is what I'm looking at on the right half, which I don't know why there's an order number there. I don't even know how the return price would be an order number. That's ridiculous.
Wow, that's interesting.
Well, I don't know. That's weird. Okay, so like this is unsellable, sellable, and then see how these are 0 price?
Yep.
So does that mean Amazon damaged me out?
So yeah, so what that means is whenever you go to your profit and loss, if you can share my screen, whoever is managing, because I can show.
Yeah. I think we both have.
So
I think we both have the power.
There we go. So this right here, this section, this cost of goods sold, what that means is there was $0 taken out of that amount is what you were showing me, Lucy. So whenever it's unsellable, what that with the 0.00 means is that cost is still wrapped up in that cost of goods sold for whenever the sale happened. Whenever Amazon shipped it out, that's whenever Inventory Lab records the sale, and that would be still in that section.
So I'm going to record the ones that have an amount there.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, or change it to unsellable so that Inventory Lab will pick up that cost. Whenever I found out,
know, like I get the items back, right? And then I'm looking at the item and Amazon may have said, oh, this bra is sellable, but I get it back and it's got like armpit stains or something ridiculous, And I'm like, no, it really isn't. So how do I find out if Amazon reimbursed me or not? And going through the Amazon way is like a pain in the butt. This sounds like a better way because I could easily go Bali bra and then, search and find it for this last week.
Or you got a pair of bowling shoes instead of a bra. We've had that happen before. So
that's our favorite.
Fun times.
Oh yeah.
So like me when I got, adult toys returned. I've never sold.
That was the funnest.
Yeah, the life of a reseller, right?
So that also is something to, that's part of the good conversation is some people who use Inventory Lab will actually make that option to mark everything as unsellable so that their cost of goods sold is always recognized. But whenever you bring stuff back, that would mean that whenever you list it on another platform, you should not be recording the inventory cost again because you've already accounted for the expense on one platform as we paid $5 for this bra. There's no, it's not proper bookkeeping to say, I'm going to recognize an additional cost for this inventory on another platform when it sells again. Because we as resellers know sometimes a item can sell, can come back into our possession maybe 2 or 3 times or even 4 times. And we sell it on 3 or 4 different platforms until it finally gets to its original customer.
That is I think nail on the head there. So like say this bra, I bought it for $5 at Kohl's. I sold it on Amazon. Amazon damages me out for it, returns the item, and I get whatever penny. You don't get a full $5 back, but you get a fraction of that. But then I go list this on eBay. I don't want to record that cost of goods again because but you may still be able to sell it in a used
Right. If you've marked it as unsellable, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you marked it as unsellable in Inventory Lab and you are using Inventory Lab for your inventory and cost of goods sold numbers, you would not want to include it as your inventory again.
Yes, or your cost of good again whenever you sell it. Which I will caveat, the default setting for Inventory Lab is whatever Amazon has deemed your item is what it's going to default that setting to. So if Amazon said it was unsellable and sent it to you as damaged, then it's going to have that cost of goods sold included in that number already on Inventory Lab. There is ways to manually change it or to manually change the default setting to it's always sellable. But if you have not touched that ever in your life and you're looking at me on the other side of this video saying, what in the world are you talking about? It's always going to default to whatever Amazon said. So keep that in mind.
I have a question on that. So I sell a lot of seasonal items. So for instance, I had some Easter items that did not sell. I sold a lot of them, but just not all of them. So I pulled out the remaining inventory after Easter. It's here in a closet. I'll pull it out again next year to send it in again. I've always entered what I paid for it again because I feel like, when I'm doing my Inventory Lab batches, I want to keep accounting of what my profit will be. So am I doing that wrong? Should I now be entering 0 because I entered it in the year before?
So you're actually doing it right, because Inventory Lab defaults to whatever Amazon deemed it as. So since you called it back personally, it's still sellable. Anytime that you do one of those callbacks of your inventory,
like overstock
and stuff like that, it will label that as sellable and it will not put that in the cost of goods sold section. So you're doing that right. You'll want to keep track of it for tax purposes for your CPA or your tax professional, so that they know what inventory you have on hand at the end of the year that you're waiting for next year to sell, because that does get factored into your taxes, your valuation of your inventory. So you do want to keep track of it in a spreadsheet or something else, but it will not be recorded in that cost of goods sold whenever you pull it back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just did end of the month on Monday or Tuesday, I think it was. Tuesday. This week is so weird with the Monday being off. But whatever the first was, then the 31st, I did the inventory. And I have my spreadsheet's kind of broken down. I have all my eBay stuff in one section, all my current batches and inventory in one section. And then I have a section for just anything laying around the office that needs to be accounted for. And that's, partials or one-offs or recalled product or stuff that I'm waiting for the right season to list. That's all there. And then I have a running total of pretty much everything that's not captured by Inventory Lab is what that other capture is. And I hate doing inventory. Just throwing that out there. But this is good stuff, because now this is going to make finding things that are damaged out or what needs to be done so much more easier.
And then I would like to have you guys back next month to talk about even in-depth finances for, when should I start paying myself? How much should I start paying myself? How much should I be setting aside to pay my quarterly taxes? Just those little tidbits of formulas, that sometimes seem confusing to a lot of sellers.
Of course, we would love that, because that's another thing. Like recently, we just started implementing this year that I was so excited that we figured out. So think of the idea of how your house or your mortgage has an escrow. You have these big bills throughout the year that you got to pay. And so whenever you pay that mortgage, you're adding into that escrow account for the bank to use later. We figured out and calculated what's typically, what are we paying? What are our big bills? What are these like, we buy shipping supplies and it's usually really big amount whenever we buy them. What does that look like throughout the year? So how much each time Amazon pays me, how much you have to set aside to cover that bill later on in the year so that it's not hitting my paycheck. I don't have to worry about that later on whenever that big giant bill hits. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Because my UPS box just hit and that's a couple $100,
Right.
And so yeah, we would love to share things, tips and tricks on the finances for sure.
And you mentioned buying some boxes, and you can get those free cardboard boxes I've told you about before, the brown ones. So definitely save money on getting some of those free. I happen to have one right here already put together for an order I have to ship out.
Nice.
Get for free.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to share before we log off?
I think we're good, unless there's any other quick questions that anybody out there has too. Speak now, or hold your peace.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay between when you say something and when people have a chance to comment here. Okay. What do you guys have planned for the rest of today? It's Friday.
I'll put in a plug for Dunkin'. Because today is National Donut Day. So actually this morning for this call, and this will speak to how we love finding the good deals. Anytime you purchase a drink with Dunkin' today, you get a free donut. So we actually both got free donuts and we had a free drink on our account. So we got 2 donuts, a free drink and another drink that we paid for, which right now they have an awesome deal of $2 medium coffees, iced coffees. So we only paid $2 for all that stuff, plus $2, of course. So we did that, and I'm thinking
you entered in an inventory lab as a business breakfast meal expense.
Consult your accountant on that, but that just goes to show how we're. Mm-hmm. One would deem it a little frugal, but there's, we like to find the deals.
Yes.
We're instinctually smart, trying to be smart about our finances. And that goes into the weekend. I'll be reaching out to some of my network of how I'm doing as a part-time, in addition to this, in addition to my job for accounting for the government, is I'm helping people with their financial planning. So it's, a financial plan from me is completely free. I do Zoom calls. Just sit down with me. I'm still in training, so I drag along my trainer, and he has a decade worth of experience to help along, and we can build that financial GPS for you so that you know where you want to be and you know where you're at now. What are the steps that you need to take in between to get there? That's completely complimentary. I'll be working on reaching out to my network, my friends and family over the weekend to get my next month booked. I'm trying to get, between 4 or 5 families at a time, each month, trying to help, just a couple people each time, because that's fulfilling for me. Mm-hmm. It helps other people with their financial goals. We did it ourselves to figure out what our financial independence number is. And, we know there's life after work and there's life after job, and we know retirement isn't an age, it's a financial independence number that helps your money work for you. So if you're interested in something like that, I'm looking to help people. Like I said, the financial plan is completely complimentary. I'll sit down over Zoom with you guys and chart through that with you. We'll talk money, completely confidential as well. I don't spout out anyone's information that's not for me.
Don't even know.
That's not for me. That's not for me to do.
But that's really nice of you. Thank you, Sean.
So,
do you have a website or an email you want to?
I do have. So I have an email. Let's see.
You have that share site too that you put up.
I have the share site.
Do you want to post it in the Facebook group?
I'll share it in the Facebook group. I will share it in the Facebook group. It's sgraffman@primerica.com is my business email for that. Like I said, I'll put that in the either on the Facebook page, and we can talk more about that offline. Just shameless plug for my other thing, because I love helping
Really
people.
nice. Thank you.
So, thank you.
And if you're interested in the Facebook group, it is called Online Selling with Tina. So if you just search for that, you will find us and find our group, where we are plugging as much information and building a network to help each other out. Mostly Tina.
Yes, because June is our online arbitrage month. And although this is nothing to do with that portion of this month's goal in our group, we just felt it was important to talk about this because there are members that were using GoDaddy and just don't feel like they want to have the expense of paying a bookkeeper and paying for QuickBooks or Xero. And like, I use A2X and HubDoc as well. It's like I use a lot of other things as well. This is a really great alternative for those that are disciplined to plug in your numbers. So thank you, Tiffany and Sean. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us. This has
Certainly.
been
Thank you for all your knowledge.
Of course.
Of
Yep,
course.
and definitely we'll have you guys back next month to talk different numbers.
Sounds great. Looking forward to see you all then.
All right, guys. Thanks.